Okay, here we go. If you hear some storming in the background, I'm probably going to lose some power, so I figured let's make a video right now. Living out in the country, I have to use my iPad because I don't have internet yet. My whole town uses a T-Mobile tower to power our internet, so I've had some pretty bad internet since I've moved to this new location. Nonetheless, today I want to give my opinion on this new economic battle between Russia and Ukraine. If I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't expect Russia to steep this low to where they are now starting to disrupt global markets between wheat and grain. Now, personally, I had no idea, if I'm going to be honest with you. I know some of you say, oh my gosh, you're so smart. I'm not smart, okay? I just read and I study and I pay attention to what's going on. I had no idea how big of a player Ukraine was when it came to grain exports and wheat exports. So much so that they supply China with 60% grain exports, which we'll get into that. I find rather interesting. Again, I'm going to try to keep this as fast as possible and as quality as possible because the storm, I'm pretty sure, is going to cut everything out. And then I won't have my T-Mobile internet to keep this all going. Okay. Now, some things I want to list off here. Russia, as we know, is going after ports in Odessa. They just recently, at the time of doing this live stream, they went 200 meters away on the Danube River to Romania, which is rather interesting to get that close to a NATO country. It could have been on purpose, or that specific port area was just a major player for holding on to grain, wheat, etc. Nonetheless, some of the countries I want to name off that Ukraine exports to actually lines up with who Russia works with, and I think there's a bit of a conflict of interest. Okay, so let's start off with Ukraine. This is who Ukraine predominantly exports their wheat or grain to, and then you'll see what I mean, how there might be a conflict of interest. Number one, first off, we know that Ukraine exports nearly half of their grain, wheat over to China. So again, issues there. Is Russia and China, are they not on the same page? Is that why Russia is okay with not stopping the attacks of the grain and wheat coming out of Ukraine? So they like, what's also I find really interesting, Ukraine loves to export to third world countries or developing countries, such as Ethiopia, Yemen, Afghanistan, Sudan, Somalia, and Kenya. When I was doing research for all of this, I was quite surprised how much Ukraine does business with these third world countries or these developing countries. But it makes sense because there's a humanitarian aspect to this, but there's also a business aspect to this. Considering a lot of people out there think that like every African country or countries in the Middle East are dirt poor, this is not necessarily exactly true. It's just that they're not the best at using their money to develop and create trade and a stable economy within those countries. Now, again, I said Ethiopia, Yemen, Afghanistan, Sudan, which I think is an important one because Sudan, we do know that Russia, they're friends with Sudan. Wagner operates out of Sudan, and Wagner used Sudan as sort of the playbook in how Wagner and Russia is going to operate within Africa. So let's look at who Russia exports to. Egypt, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Kazakhstan, Nigeria. Now, unironically, we don't know if this is true or not true. Russia is boasting that this is the largest crop or harvest they've ever had ever. And so it almost makes sense that now all of a sudden Russia is boasting that they have all this grain and all this wheat and they're ready to export. However, Ukraine is sort of undercutting them with this export and their grain deal. And so it makes sense that Russia's like, you know what, we're going to take you guys out, so now maybe we're going to start selling to developing countries. And hey, Turkey, I thought you were our friends. Now, Turkey is sort of caught in the middle here. Turkey wants to protect Ukraine, and of course, Turkey operates the main port coming out of the Black Sea, which is the Black Sea grain deal. And I see some of your comments. I will speak on Wagner here in a second. But when I post this video, leave your comments below, and I like to use dialogue from these live stream posts. So Turkey is in a tough spot because Turkey, economically, they make a lot of money between ships going up and down this port. I mean, that's what's paying for the port. And you have to understand, it's not like the Black Sea is the most buzzing body of water. There's enough out there to make it profitable, but nonetheless, it's the Black Sea working with Russia, Romania, Turkey, and so on. It's not like the most countries. So Turkey needs any ship going through there to make sure they are protected. And of course, Turkey works with NATO and they're supporting they're supporting Ukraine. So obviously they're going to be on Ukraine's side. When it comes to economy, when it comes to working with your friends, that's where Russia's like, hey, we're also selling you wheat. Why can't we be exclusive with you? And Russia is saying, why can't we be exclusive with the world? So again, this is all starting to line up and make sense. I highly suggest, I know this is a very obscure and weird topic to look into the wheat and grain trading throughout the world, but go ahead and look up how much Ukraine actually sells to the world and how impactful they are on a humanitarian level and economic level. So Russia is seeing, hey, you know what? Let's go after their grain. Let's go after their wheat. Let's try to destabilize their economy in that way. So now Ukraine has to focus on a two-front campaign, economic and an actual military campaign. And also a maritime campaign, because these ships are now being deemed military or legitimate military targets. And when it comes to the rules of war, Russia has really been able to manipulate the rules and say, you know what? These are dual targets. Not only are these civilian vessels, but they're also military vessels, because we don't know what's in those ships. It can be military or arms trading and stuff like that. So Russia's really good at twisting and making it seem like we can attack anything we want for dual usage. And yes, I am on a 720p stream because I moved out to the country and my whole town uses T-Mobile. Once we get direct internet, which should be in about half a year, that's what we're being told, we'll raise the bar to 1080. Raise the roof. But I do want to answer one of your questions about Wagner. Did Wagner not dissolve within Sudan? Is Wagner not a thing anymore? They are still a thing. Wagner is still operating within Belarus, and Wagner legally is still operating under Russian government authority, which means that these contracts and deals that Wagner operates within Africa, they still have to give a cut of the money over to Russia. And it doesn't make sense for Wagner to not still align with Russia, because one of the big selling points of Wagner, and again, I suggest you look this up, Wagner was playing an ambassadorship for Russia, which means Wagner would go into your country, Sudan. We are working with Russia. You have one of the strongest countries in the world, and we're going to back you, and we're going to protect you, and you get to work with Russia directly. And that's a good deal for some of these developing countries like Sudan, who got an AK-47 arms trade out of it. And obviously, we know Wagner's working in Mali, and they're doing work in Mali that Mali loves Wagner. They even kicked out the UN, they kicked out the French, and Wagner stepped up. This is not me supporting Wagner. I think they're a bunch of thugs, and I think they're taking advantage of a lot of the African nations, but nonetheless, that is their campaign strategy within Africa. So yes, on the outside, as Wagner dissolving, obviously their campaign within Russia did not do well, and Wagner has been boasting that they're going to stop operating in Ukraine and focus directly on Africa, so we can only take this with a grain of salt. My opinions on U.S.-China tensions, I think it's a little hyped right now. I think the biggest tensions right now with the United States is actually going to be with North Korea. And I will be speaking on that soon. Again, make sure, I'm going to be posting this live stream. Post your comments down below. I'm looking up because it's storming, and I think I got to end this here soon. But right now, when it comes to the Pacific, North Korea is the real struggle for the United States. Yes, we have Taiwan and China and a potential drone race who can build the most drones, but nonetheless, we are dealing with North Korea because at any second they could just pop off. But again, in this video, I highly suggest you look into how Russia is starting to attack ships, ports, anything that has to do with grain, because Ukraine is a major supplier to the rest of the world when it comes to grain and wheat exports. It's fascinating. 55% of their country is able to produce or work with grain, which is incredible. And again, this is a humanitarian aspect, and this is an economic aspect that is destroying Ukraine, and this is not a good thing. And Russia knows what they're doing, and personally to me, I think this is a way for Russia to try leveraging Turkey to work with Russia, or Russia to go down into Africa and undercut Ukraine and say, look, we are more stable than Ukraine. You cannot work with them. Work with us. We got the wheat. We got the grain. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm about to post this live stream. Leave your comments, opinions down below. I'm going to go through them and I'll respond to some of them. Appreciate all you guys, and hopefully I'll have better internet soon. I live out in the country. We use T-Mobile out here, people. I got 800 people in this town. Anyway, love you guys. See y'all later.